onto the banking for the last time, up to receive the cheers of this enormous crowd in Indianapolis for the last time, and Michael Schumacher as they go side by side across the line. Who's going to win this Grand Prix? It's a mystery. It's Michael Schumacher, 11th win of the season. Nice touch, Ferrari.
I tell you, I'm well impressed with that. It's 0.0. Barrichello's been given the win. Barrichello's been given the win over the line. He's first over. Schumacher was 0.0 behind, but according to the computer, Rubens Barrichello just won the Grand Prix.
Photographs. Millions of them can be seen, each telling their own story about the wonderful history of our beloved sport. Even I like to throw my own efforts into the ring from time to time. Photographs going as far back as July 1894 to the Paris to Rouen race, which is today recognised as the first organised competitive motorsport event. In this one, cars can be seen taking part in the 1906 French Grand Prix, captured in a single moment for everyone to see for centuries to come. Photos like Schumacher arriving at the grid in 2002, Senna about to tackle Eau Rouge in 1988, the Ferrari formation finish at the 1967 Daytona 24 Hours. In fact, there are endless photos like this, showcasing some of the most iconic and awe-inspiring moments in motorsport history. But some show a darker side. The famous photos of David Purley at Zandvoort in 1973 are still etched into the minds of many people today. Senna sat in his Williams shortly before the start of the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix. Juan Manuel Fangio consoling Jose Froilán González after the death of their friend and compatriot Onofre Marimon at the 1954 German Grand Prix, and many others that showcase more horrific details. But there is one photo out there that still stands out as one of the most intriguing but haunting photos in all of motorsport. This one. This photo was taken at the 1957 Mille Miglia. At the time, it captured a romantic moment between a driver and his partner during this prestigious race. But shortly after this photo was taken, it would have an entirely different meaning. The photo is known today as the Kiss of Death, and to understand why, first we must go back to 1921. The date is the 4th of September 1921, and at a 10-mile circuit in Montecari near Brescia, the first Italian Grand Prix is about to take place. Only 6 cars took part, and it was the French driver Jules Gau driving a Ballo that would cross the line victorious. It was humble beginnings for Italian Grand Prix racing, but this form of motorsport was beginning to become more popular across Europe. During this time, endurance racing and Grand Prix racing was slowly separating into 2 entirely different disciplines, with the latter being considered the prestigious events, hence the Grand Prix name. Many countries wanted to host a Grand Prix. Within a handful of years, Germany, Belgium and Britain would follow suit and have their own Grand Prix, and this would eventually lead to the first World Championship in 1925. But even with Italy's first Grand Prix in 1921, the country was no stranger to motor racing. In 1906, on the island of Sicily, the Targa Florio was founded, and it quickly established itself as the toughest and most prestigious racing event in the world at the time. This race took place on public roads, originally on a course 92 miles in length, with around 2,000 corners per lap. This course was changed many times over the next 2 decades, including its longest variation measuring over 600 miles long. Road racing was very much the order of the day at the time, and closed circuit racing was still in its infancy. But in 1922, Italy would welcome its first permanent racing circuit, the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. In response to the opening of this brand new and modern racing venue, the Italian Grand Prix was moved from Brescia to Monza from 1922, where it has remained ever since, except for 4 separate years where the race was held elsewhere for a variety of reasons. But the race moving from Brescia to Monza left some people unhappy that the race had been taken away from them. 4 people in particular wanted to bring motor racing back to the city. Amo Maggi, Franco Mazzotti, Renzo Castagneto and Giovanni Canestrini came together to establish a new race. With the help of some wealthy associates, this new race was first held in 1927. But this race was entirely different than the Grand Prix that preceded it. The starting point would be in Brescia, with the route going south to the Italian capital Rome, before returning north back to Brescia in a rough figure-of-8 configuration. The course would go through various changes and alterations over the years, but the basic idea would remain the same. Brescia to Rome and back again. Winding its way through endless public roads in some of the most beautiful areas of the country, the course was just over 1,000 miles long, giving birth to its name, the Mille Miglia. Similar to the Targa Florio, cars started the race in a rally-style format at specific times, with each car's starting time being its number for the race. The slowest cars started first, with the fastest cars starting last. Along the route were various checkpoints for pit stops and where the driver and the navigator could get a few minutes to rest. You could change drivers, but most chose not to. In fact, most Italian drivers didn't even need navigators, since they had grown up knowing these roads like the back of their hands. The first race started on the 26th of March 1927 and was a great success. The winner, Giuseppe Morandi, won in just over 21 hours. The Mille Miglia would grow dramatically in popularity over the next few decades, establishing itself as one of the most prestigious racing events in the world, alongside the Targa Florio, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and the Indianapolis 500. By 1957, only 3 non-Italian drivers had won this race. Rudolf Caracciola in 1937, Pusch von Hanstein in 1940, and famously in 1955, Stirling Moss. He, like so many others, would tackle this event with a navigator in the passenger seat. For this year, just like every other year, he brought along the perfectionist Motorsport magazine journalist Dennis Jenkinson, who prior to the race conducted 6 reconnaissance laps in order to thoroughly study the course and write his findings on a scroll measuring 5.5 meters in length. These writings were essentially the modern equivalent of rally pace notes, and Dennis would communicate with Stirling using 15 pre-arranged hand signals. Together, they took on this most challenging race in their Mercedes 300 SLR and stunned everyone by not only winning, but achieving victory in a record time of 10 hours, 7 minutes and 48 seconds, with an average speed of 99 miles per hour. 2 years later, in 1957, there were increasing rumours floating around that this most famous race wasn't going to last much longer. Despite its fame and grandeur, this race had many problems, and its flaws were only mounting up. For one, this race was incredibly dangerous. On average, every year at least one person would die, either a driver, navigator or spectator. Nobody was spared. Its danger really became apparent after the cancellation of Mexico's Carrera Panamericana, which in the space of only 5 events between 1950 and 1954 claimed the lives of 27 people. This being the years following the 1955 Le Mans disaster, everyone was slightly more safety conscious, especially with road races, and the Mille Miglia had a brutal history to back up people's concerns. In 1938, a Lancia Aprilia crashed in Bologna after going over a railway crossing. The car lost control and hit a tree before rolling over into a crowd of spectators. The car occupants only suffered minor injuries, but 10 spectators had been killed. Many of them children, one only as young as 5 years old. 26 other people were also injured. Elsewhere, 6 other spectators were also injured in another crash involving an Alfa Romeo near the city of Ferrara. Later, near the village of Stanghella, a 12-year-old girl named Tercilia Rizzo was yet another victim of an on-track incident. The sheer number of deaths that came out of this year's event caused a significant amount of public outcry, with many calling for a permanent cancellation of the race. The outcry was so large that the situation reached the very top of the Italian government and they had to step in. Benito Mussolini, so appalled by these events, took personal charge of the race organisation and immediately banned it for 1939 and stopped all road racing in city centres. For 1939, the race moved to Libya, then an Italian colony, with the route going from Tobruk to Tripoli. But in April 1940, the race returned to mainland Italy on a smaller scale route near Brescia and was known as the Grand Prix of Brescia. But in June 1940, Italy entered the Second World War, and understandably, all racing in Italy was postponed indefinitely. Following 5 years of war, Italy was on its knees and was a devastated and exhausted country, like many others in Europe. But it wasn't long before discussions were taking place in regards to the resumption of competitive motorsport. Some of the original founders of the Mille Miglia, who had survived the war, sought to revive the race along its original 1,000-mile route. After 5 years of war, the Italian population had mostly forgotten about the race's brutal past, and eventually permission was granted for the Mille Miglia to return in 1947. For the next 10 years, the race would go on just like it did previously, even becoming part of the new World Sports Car Championship in 1953. However, more incidents took place, and many near misses too, including one involving Hans Hermann and his navigator Herbert Ling, who chose not to stop for a passing train on a railway crossing and instead ducked underneath the barrier at high speed, just moments before a train passed through, much to the astonishment of the spectators who were watching. But 1957 would end up being the last edition of the original Mille Miglia. For this race, Ferrari were the usual favourites, and they had a very strong lineup including names such as Piero Taruffi, Wolfgang von Trips and Peter Collins. Originally, Ferrari works driver Luigi Musso was meant to be part of the lineup, but he had to withdraw due to illness. Instead, his seat was taken up by the Spanish aristocrat Alfonso de Portago, who was already making a name for himself in both sports car and Formula 1. Alfonso was a pure sportsman. He had taken part in many different sports, whether that be horse racing, swimming, flying, and representing Spain in bobsleigh at the 1956 Winter Olympics. He wanted to do it all. He was also a prolific poker player, reportedly winning up to $2 million one night in Monte Carlo casino. He was also a playboy, one who was the ladies' favourite, and was considered a sex symbol at the time. His racing exploits only increased his reputation, and he received high praise from his fellow drivers too, so he wasn't slow by any means. But Alfonso didn't particularly enjoy motorsport. He said once, "Automobiles bore me. I know next to nothing about them and I care less. I have no sentimental attachment for a car. I can hardly tell one from another. Sometimes I make a little scratch on a car in an inconspicuous place, so I can recognise it the next time I'm in it, so I can remember its defects. I'm not interested in cars. To me, they're a means of transportation from point A to point B, that or a machine for racing." But Alfonso also spoke about his fears. "I'm often frightened. I can get frightened crossing the street in heavy traffic, and I know a moral coward. I can't even go into a shop to look around and walk out without buying something. As for enjoying fear, I don't think anybody enjoys fear, at least in my definition, which is a mental awareness of a danger to your body. You can enjoy courage, but not fear. I know that my first ride in a racing car frightened me. That was the Mexican road race in 1953. Alfonso continued on saying, "I met Harry Schell and Luigi Chinetti at the Paris Auto Show in 1953, and Chinetti asked me to be his co-driver in the Pan American race. All he really wanted me for, of course, was ballast. I didn't drive a foot, not even from the garage to the starting line. I just sat there, white with fear, holding on to anything I thought looked sturdy enough." One race in particular that scared Alfonso was the Mille Miglia, and up until now had done everything to successfully avoid it. but this time he had no choice. No matter how much you practice, you can't possibly come to know 1,000 miles of Italian roads as well as the Italians. And as Fangio says, if you have a conscience, you can't drive really fast anyway. There are hundreds of corners in Mille Miglia where one little slip by a driver will kill 50 people. You can't keep the spectators from crowding into the road. You couldn't do it with an army. It's a race I hope I never run in. Shortly before the 1957 race, Alfonso tried to convince Luigi Musso again to take his place, but he was still recovering from illness and was unavailable. He also wrote to American model Dorian Lee, saying, "As you know, in the first place I did not want to do the Mille Miglia. Then Ferrari said I must do it, at least in a Gran Turismo car. Then I was told I had to do it in a new 3.8 litre sports car. That means my early death may well come next Sunday." Alfonso de Portago was partnered up with the American navigator Edmund Nelson. The pairing had previous successful experience working together in the past, so they weren't total strangers, but the task ahead of them was completely different, unlike anything they had done before. Setting off in Brescia at 31 minutes past 5 in the morning, Nelson and De Portago set off in a world of the unknown, both intent of just simply finishing rather than winning, clearly just wanting to get it out of the way as soon as possible. By the first checkpoint he was running in 4th place and retained this position by the time he reached Rome, the theoretical halfway point. Here Alfonso's girlfriend was waiting for him, Mexican actress Linda Christian. But just as Alfonso set off on the return leg back up to Brescia, Linda leaned into the car for a kiss. Years later, Linda remembered that kiss. "I had a strange sensation with that kiss. It was cold, and it caused me to look for the first time at Nelson seated behind him. He seemed to be like a mummy, grey, ashen, as if mesmerised. He had the eyes of someone who had suffered an enormous shock." After Alfonso had left, Linda went to catch a flight back up to Milan, where she would meet with Alfonso after the race. On the return leg, other Ferraris encountered trouble. Peter Collins was the first to retire, and this elevated Alfonso up into 3rd place, and later he realised he was catching Wolfgang von Trips in 2nd and began to push slightly harder in order to close the gap. This push put tremendous strain on the Engelbert tyres that the Ferrari was using, not to mention rear bodywork damage had been making contact with the tyres. So when the pair came into the town of Mantova for their final checkpoint, they decided not to change tyres, not wishing to lose time to von Trips just a few minutes ahead. With only 40 miles until the finish line, De Portago pushed on in the hopes of retaining his podium position. He had indeed been swept up in the lure of achieving a Mille Miglia podium. His early intentions of just simply finishing the race was well out of the window by now. At times, De Portago could see von Trips in the distance, chasing down the leader Taruffi. He knew in himself he could do it, but just outside of the town of Guidizzolo, this would come to a very abrupt end. On the straight road between Cerlongo and Guidizzolo, on a stretch which is now the SP236, De Portago's car was travelling at an estimated 155 miles per hour. Without warning, his front left tyre exploded, sending the car spinning out of control. After hitting a curbstone, the Ferrari got airborne, tearing down a telegraph pole. The car then rolled several times, disintegrating as it went before sliding across the road and resting in a brook on the right-hand side. All of this took place in only 5 seconds. When the dust settled from this enormous crash, the scene was utter devastation. Debris was strewn all over the place, and not just debris, but also bodies. As the Ferrari rolled down the road, it crashed through a large crowd of spectators who had only just emerged to watch the procession of cars pass through. It was the stuff of nightmares, and the ones who were unhurt hurriedly tried to help those who had been hit by the car. When people got to the wrecked Ferrari deep in the brook, they couldn't immediately find the crew. Only when they looked underneath and found both Alfonso de Portago and Edmund Nelson dead, and both barely recognisable. There were no ambulances in the area that could help, so the survivors had to fend for themselves. All the while the race carried on, and cars passed through the disaster zone. People drove the injured to local hospitals in anything they could find. Later, it was confirmed that 9 spectators were killed in the accident. Romeo Stancari, 53. Pietro Grandelli, 52. Angelo Dobelli, 50. Silvestro Francini, 27. Anita Boscaini, 10. Carmen Tarcini, 10. Virginia Regon, 9. Giovanni Conzato, 8. And Valentino Regon, 6. 2 other members of the Regon family were also badly injured, including the father Giovanni and his youngest son Lorenzo, who was only 3 years old. Only the 19-year-old Rita Regon escaped uninjured, only because she was standing on the other side of the road. 18 other people were also injured. Earlier in the race, Josef Gutgens driving a Triumph died in another accident near Florence, bringing the death toll from this race up to 12. Word quickly spread about these disasters and a huge public outcry started. Even the Vatican got involved, and much of the blame was placed on Enzo Ferrari. Both he and the tyre manufacturer Engelbert were charged with 11 counts of manslaughter by Italian prosecutors. The charges were dropped in 1961 when it was finally determined that a cat's eye road reflector had punctured the tyre on De Portago's Ferrari, enough to cause its sudden blowout. But these events were the final straw. 3 days after the race, the Italian government finally put a stop to the Mille Miglia and banned all road racing on mainland Italy. The Targa Florio in Sicily, which itself had a dangerous reputation, would still carry on, right up until 1977. But the story of the Mille Miglia did not end there. In 1958, a rally-type event was founded carrying the same name. Although this race was conducted at legal speeds, only a handful of stages were conducted at race speeds. But interest was low for this event, as it just simply wasn't the same, and it folded in 1961. But in 1977, the Mille Miglia was essentially revived for the 3rd time, and on the original route, this time under the name the Mille Miglia Storica. This race in 1977 was promoted as a reenactment event open for cars built no later than 1957, and to run at legal road speeds. This event was such a success that by the mid-1980s, the Mille Miglia Storica became an annual race, and is still going strong today. It is even still a competitive race, now being run as a classic car regularity race, whereby you must reach the predetermined checkpoints at specific times, and you earn penalties points if you are early or late. The race is also held over 5 days along the original 1,000-mile route, and the car with the least amount of penalty points wins. This event has even attracted big-name drivers such as Clay Regazzoni, Jochen Mass and Mika Häkkinen, and even Stirling Moss came back on several occasions, still determined as ever to win all those years after his famous win. The Mille Miglia may still carry on today, but its fearsome past has not been forgotten. Not so long after this disaster, a memorial sequence was installed at the accident site, ensuring that the memories of the dead will never ever be forgotten. And in 2023, this race and a Guidizzolo accident was portrayed in the film Ferrari, directed by Michael Mann. Since being published, the photo taken of Linda Christian and Alfonso de Portago became an iconic photo all over the world, quickly gaining the name of the Kiss of Death. Little did anybody at the time know what disaster lay ahead just shortly after this photo was taken. Life magazine published the photo under the caption, "Death finally takes a man who courted it." The original print was acquired by the Bettman Archive, where it is stored today in an underground storage facility in Pennsylvania. And that is the story behind the Kiss of Death photo and the Mille Miglia. I've been Jack Palmer, and thank you for watching.